This story happened when I was a teenager back in Puebla, Mexico. I used to hang out with my friends. We were in secondary school back then, and we used to hang out in this old house that apparently there was some crime that happened over there. We used to be into all these creepy things. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful home. The home, I can't remember, but I think it had like about two floors, like what, like very high ceilings, and it had like pieces of like the whole side of the house was gone by the fire, and the stairs they were partially gone as well. So the there were black cloths everywhere. There were black candles everywhere, and there were like beams, like really big pieces of wood that were like the major structure of the house in certain places, but they were like partially burned. So it wasn't necessarily fully standing, that house. It was like half of it was standing, half of it was gone. I remember it had like spiral stairs, but we didn't, obviously you couldn't access the second floor because the second floor was like the stairs were gone and everything. Another very creepy thing about this house is that the backyard was huge. You were going to this huge backyard. It was almost like the woods, but it had a circle of trees. So it was like a big area, like a circular area. It was all dirt, like it didn't have any grass or anything. It was just dirt, and then it was surrounded by trees, like a lot of really tall trees. But it had an altar at the back. It had an altar, the same ones that you find like in the Catholic church made out of marble as well, but it was broken in pieces, but it was there. And so we, at some point, one of our friends ended up getting involved with some satanic sect, and we thought he was joking with us, and we just kept thinking, this guy is just bluffing. But we kept asking him questions, but he wouldn't reveal too much. He used to say, no, I can't say anything because I don't want to get in trouble. So we just thought, no, whatever. He's probably just bluffing. So, anyways, we kept going because he's the one who brought us to that place. And this place is where they used to have meetings. So one day we skipped school and we went to this abandoned house. The story of the house was that there was men who had, I don't know how many kids, maybe two kids or whatever, and he murdered his two kids and his wife, and then let them bleed to death in the bathtub. And then he burned the house. He killed himself and burned the house. So when we went back, the house still had a bathtub in there, and the bathtub was still stained with blood. Like the blood was three-quarters up on the bathtub, and the house was burned. Only the second floor was burned. There were like old beams, and I remember we took a whole bunch of pictures and we spent the day there. At some point, my friend who used to belong to the sect, he came in with this Ouija board, but he came with this big, like a big board, very heavy, everything like carved in. So it was beautiful, and we were all super excited. Oh my god! And he used to be like, "This is the real thing." So we wanted to play it, and then he's like, "No, we can't play it here because we need to take a couple of steps as a precaution because this is very dangerous. It's not a toy like the ones that you guys have been playing." And we're like, "Ooh, okay." So then, what do we do? And I remember I think he said you had to put salt somewhere and you had to put like a glass of water somewhere else. I can't remember because I'm not into that. I wasn't serious about all the creepy stuff. I know that I always have fun with the occult, or I like scary movies and scary stories, but as in following that diligently, not really. We said, okay, so we didn't play it. We spent the whole day in that house, took pictures. We came back home. Like, obviously, nothing weird happened over there, but we used to find it like a really creepy place. And you did have that sense of there was something going on in the house. So there was like this energy, and you knew that there was something that actually happened. But anyway, so when we went back home, another friend of mine kept the Ouija board. So my friend who was in the site wasn't there anymore, but there was this other friend. So this friend, he came to my house one day. I remember it was a weekend, and he knocked on my door and he's, "Do you want to play the Ouija board?" And I said, "Okay, sure." And he said, "Let's go over to my other friend." So another girl, maybe one of my best girlfriend. And then we said, "Let's go and play it together." So I said, "Okay." So we're gonna go to her house and play the Ouija board. And it was raining, I remember. It was raining, it was pouring, and there was lightning. So we just kept running around, wrapping the Ouija board so it wouldn't get wet. We wouldn't get in trouble with our friend. So we went, we knocked on the house, and her sisters and her mother were leaving the house as they opened the door. So we're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And we're like, "Hey, where's Alex?" She's upstairs. She's just taking a shower. And we're like, "Okay." So then she said, "Just come in, make yourself." So we went inside the house, and I remember she used to have a dog. The dog's name was Lobo. It's wolf in Spanish. So anyway, so we came in, and I was looking for Lobo because I just loved that dog. He was a husky. So anyways, we came in, we're like snooping through the stuff, looking at pictures you normally do sometimes when you go to somebody's home. And we kept just talking to each other. And then all of a sudden, we realized that the water, because it was raining so hard, that the water started leaking into the house. Because it was raining super hard, the water started going through the door, like underneath the door, and then it formed a puddle right inside, like by the entrance. So then we thought, oh my God, it was a big puddle. And that noise that you make when you step on the water, how it sounds like it, the little splashy sound. We heard that, right? We were like, and I looked, I didn't see anything, but what I saw were the paw prints of who I thought was Lobo, like the wet prints leaving the puddle. And then I thought, oh, he's here. So then I started chasing after because the paw prints would lead over to the dining room area. And there was a big table, and that table had a big one of those, what is it, like the tablecloths, one of those like long ones that you can see underneath. So anyway, so I headed over to the dining room area to look for Lobo because in my head he's there. Like I just saw the paw prints, I didn't see him. So then I look underneath, but he's not there. So then I told my friend, I said, "Hey," I said, like, "Did you see Lobo?" I said, he was just here." And then he was just like, "No." And then he decided to help me find him. I said, "Look." And he saw the paw prints too. He's like, "Oh yeah, he must be around here." From the living room, there was a door to the kitchen. So when I started looking for Lobo, then I thought, okay, well, he's not here. He must be in the kitchen. So then I continued to walk in the kitchen. He wasn't there. And my friend came and he also started looking, oh, maybe the other side, maybe here, maybe there. And then he asked me, did you try to look under the table? And I said, yes, he wasn't there. And he wouldn't believe me. So then he goes and lifts the tablecloth and puts his hand on the floor, the one hand on the floor, to try to see if Lobo is there. So as he's looking, my friend is coming out of the shower. He's just coming downstairs. And then she asked, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Oh," I said, "Well, I just heard, Lobo um, step on the water, and then we saw his footprints. But I can't find him. Where is he?" And then he just looked at me, and she opened her eyes wide, and she said, "Lobo's not home. She's in my other home because she still have another house." And we're like, "What?" And then in that moment, my other friend goes, "Oh," and I said, "What happened?" So he gets up from being under the table, and he had like punctures of like kind of like with a needle in every single one of his 5 fingers. And we were like, "Oh," and then she said, what are you guys doing? What did you want to do? And then we said nothing. We were thinking we wanted to play the Ouija board, and we got so freaked out. And we're like, no, 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 let's just grab it. Let's just give it away. Let's give it away. So we went out in the middle of the storm with lightning, running around to see if we could actually be in somebody's home, with an adult, with a responsible adult who would feel safe. But I remember we were so freaked out. We actually never played the Ouija board. We never played it because of after that it happened, because we had it with us. It seems like he spontaneously started bleeding from each of his fingertips, like the five fingertips, as if when you get like the kind of like a little prick with with a needle, like just a very tiny little prick, like in the finger, very very small. He was touching a tile. It's not that it was carpet or there was nothing on the floor. It was nice and smooth. There was no way that anything that would be there that you wouldn't see. She just said nothing. He's like, I put my one hand on the ground, and with the other hand, he was lifting the tablecloth to see if he was there. I'm like, did you see anything? No, I didn't see anything, but just my fingers. And it's not that I'm somebody who like believes in ghosts or like apparitions, or because like in Mexico, a lot of people believe those things, right? So it's something that is very common, and I've always been like, oh, until something happens to me, I'm not the kind to believe. So that was the one thing normally that actually happened to me. It freaked me out, and I thought, okay, maybe the Ouija board is something I should stay away from.